Hi, thank you for joining us. With us is Laurie Barlev, the founder of Barlev Success. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I am very good.
Good.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Why don't we just dive into it? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your path to becoming a customer success leader?
Sure. So I am a customer success executive. I work with B2B SaaS companies, largely with early stage companies. They have to be revenue generating because customer success is most relevant when you have customers that are generating money. I also work with larger companies where they may have a need but not the resources. So they need to do churn analysis or they need to make a health score, update their health score. I come in and do a project with them. Um, just how I got into this is that my focus has always been customers from the start. I've always been focused on trying to find value for them. First in product strategy, where I was looking for new products. And then about 10 years ago or so, I shifted to customer success because it's a much more tangible and immediate way to find value and see value. And I like to be able to touch, be able to touch what I'm
Hmm.
doing and see what I'm doing. Um, and it's been fun ever since.
That's great. Great. I'm sure you've worked with a lot of clients and you have your own, current strategy for customer success. Why don't we dive into that? What are you focusing on right now?
So, like I said earlier, I'm focusing with early stage and larger companies, but the focus really in this market is retention of existing customers and where possible growth. Uh, the market has not been kind to salespeople trying to get new logos, given how much budgets are being, made smaller and they're tightening the belts. So I thought it was a great time to start pitching and pushing on the fact that customer success represents or contributes about 65% of revenue to the company.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you really want to focus it on there. Let's dive into that. How do you get them to increase that revenue? What recommendations do you make to these companies to increase their customer success?
So I think the most important point with customer success is being able to uh, know what your customer values. How are they assessing what you bring to the table as a company, as software? And if you understand that and are constantly delivering on that and having conversations where you understand what may not be working, whether it's about your product or not, and being able to come up and resolve those situations for them with an ROI of some sort, then it's easier to get them to sign or possibly consider growing, acquiring more product or another service that you offer.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So let's take a step back. If you're somebody who's just stepping into one of these roles, what would you recommend they do in the first 100 days?
Sure. So I think there's this belief that you have to deliver very quickly, and what I've learned through the years is the most important thing you do initially is to learn about your company, learn about your team, learn about your stakeholders, learn about the clients, learn your technology, understand what the business is about and where there are opportunities to expand it, but more just understand what are the problems that you're trying to solve for the company. It's also important very early on to make sure that what was in the job description and what the expectations for the role are aligned with what they actually are. Because a lot of times, having written job descriptions myself, is you write down like a 10 or 12 things when actually there's one or two very clear things. So understand what that is and make sure you're aligned across the board. The other thing that's really, really important is try to find something that is relevant to the company, um, a problem at the company, but something that is doable and achievable win early on. So find it doesn't have to be this huge thing, but in the first 100 days, you should be able to figure out from the conversations, from talking to customers, what isn't working or what might be better, figure it out and do it, because then you have an early win. And it makes it easier to develop the relationships with your stakeholders and you start off on a good foot versus not so good and have to constantly climb up and prove yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. You always like those quick wins. Aside from a quick win right off and within your first 100 days and throughout your strategy, how would you measure the success of what you're doing?
So I would break it down into two parts. One is the success from a business standpoint. How is customer success making the larger company successful? I know a lot of success within answers. So I always strongly believe that gross revenue retention is the most important metric that the group needs to work for. The caveat is it's gross revenue retention when you don't have revenue quotas or goals associated with the customer success team. So being able to retain the customer is important, but it's a lagging metric. Like you don't know if you're being successful until down the road. So the things that are important to measure early on are things that feed into retention, and things like time to value, how much engagement or adoption you have, what customer feedback are you getting. And those things, if they're going well, allow you to have more comfort in believing that you're going to retain the customer. From a team, more specific team or more individual perspective, what I measure, what I think is important to measure or to capture is what kinds of references or how many references is each CSM getting? How many CSQLs or customer success qualified leads are they passing off to sales or account management? The other piece I think it influences me quite a bit because I was managing during, it was called the COVID tsunami, where I think it was early in 2021 where all the HR people were talking to each other and saying there are going to be a lot of people who leave their jobs and find something different. So having the team stay, so retention, not just of customers, but retention of my team and them getting promotions and them getting the recognition is also something that I think is really important for me to measure as a leader.
Yeah, you have to have successful employees to have successful customers, right? Happy employees give the best work, and they treat the customers
they
the
do.
best. Yeah. Besides people leaving during the pandemic and a lot of change going on with a lot of businesses, what pain points have you run into, running a customer success team?
So customer success is often thought of as a cost center. And when you're in a market like this, you do not want to be the cost center. But the irony is that customer success is responsible for something like 65% or more of the revenue that is brought in by the customer. And the reason for that is that the customer success managers develop this relationship with the customers. And as a result, they are able to identify opportunities to solve problems for the customer and get the customer to renew or grow their what they're spending with us. The challenge is getting the executives to align on attribute the revenue to customer success. And when you think about it, the revenue that comes in after the sale that customer success is responsible for takes a long time to see or manifest itself versus how quickly you can bring in new logos. And so you have to have a longer term view to say, oh yeah, customers, because we have customer success, we're able to get all this revenue versus, oh, look at all these logos that we brought in. So that's part of the problem. The other problem is making sure, or the other pain point is making sure that the company as a whole understands that customer success is a company responsibility. Yes, it's a function, but customer success on its own cannot make a customer successful if there are issues that customer success doesn't control, like product, maybe like billing, like a misexpectations or an unaligned expectations from sales, or they're not getting the support they need. So if customer success brings in and says, hey, this customer is not happy about A, B, C, D, they need the team, the company, the different functions to come in and help them. And I think from a customer success management of the team issue or pain is, the customer success managers get a lot of the complaints that customers have. They're the main point of contact. If the customer's upset, whether they're upset because something's going on in their life or something didn't work, even if it was, user error, the customer success managers hear that a lot. So keeping them wanting to engage with customers, being proactive, being able to address these complaints and enjoy what they're doing and feeling part of a team and feeling that the rest of the company supports them is a big challenge for any leader, especially in customer success.
That makes a lot of sense. I heard a little tidbit in there I want to talk about a little bit more. You said it can be kind of hard to get leadership to buy in. So let's talk about that. How do you get the C-suite to buy into what you're doing?
I'm a numbers person.
Yep.
Give me a number, I'm happy to play around with it. So I think numbers are always critical for providing the backup for any kind of request you have. So if you need more headcount because your team is overwhelmed, you need to be able to show, what's your team handling, what they're managing, what they're bringing in, what would happen if if you didn't get more headcount. All these things are going to go into churn and whatever numbers you want to manage. So without question, you need to have some backup, and numbers always work well with executives. The other thing is you have to make sure that you deliver on what you're promising. You need to give reason or examples of trust, right? Or give the reasons to have the executives trust you. So there are times that you need to loop the execs in. Like there's a big problem with the customer, you need to loop the execs in. Maybe not such a big problem with the customer, but you really want to make sure the exec team is aware of what's going on. So you need to know when you bring the execs in, and when you kind of just give them an FYI and keep track of what's going on. The other thing is make promises, deliver on them, deliver on success. Nobody is going to get buy-in from an executive team if you can't deliver on the success.
That's great advice right there. Do you have a specific example? Let's talk about the, delivering success. Do you have an example of where you use customer feedback to improve a company?
Yeah. So I said earlier, customers, I start and end with customers. I'm always listening to what the customer is saying and trying to figure out what they need versus what's nice to have, or they just like to, they're just complaining about something because they're complaining about something, just like everybody else does on occasion. So that kind of is always in the back of my mind. What are they saying? What do they need? And then does it align across other customers? So I was at Meetup doing a project, and I knew there was a problem with retaining the organizers. The organizers, the Meetup organizers are contribute a lot of the revenue to Meetup. They pay for their subscription, and then they try to get people to come to their meetups. I knew there was some issue that was going on, and I knew the only way that I was going to find out why the organizers were churning or were just being quiet and not organizing meetups was to have a conversation with them. So I spoke with a bunch of different organizers from different levels of tenure, from different locations, different areas of interest, and spoke with them and tried to get out what wasn't working for them, and to some extent what was Meetup not doing, but really just at the end of the day, what wasn't working, what would make them work, what do they need, and developed a whole program behind it, around it. And that's one of my more favorite ones. It's kind of customer success in a way of voice of the customer. It's stepping back and kind of doing this project. There are other times that I'm listening, like at Schulware, I was listening to the customers and realized there's a related but different product that the synagogues, which is what Schulware sold to, they needed, and there was no solution in the marketplace. So picking that up, I was able to say, okay, we need to develop this product.
Oh, that's awesome. Hopefully it made a lot of revenue for them too. Yeah, absolutely. What is the future of customer success?
So I think part of it depends on where the market goes. I don't think we're going back to, growth at all costs, and we're going to get, it's easy to get new customers, new logos. So I think you're going to still have a lot of emphasis on retention and growth of your existing customer base. I think it's the other part of it's going to depend on is if we as customer success executives are able to show and get buy-in that we are delivering on the revenue that is coming from customers as opposed to prospects.
Mm-hmm.
If we can show that, I think it'll give us a lot of opportunity to build out those teams. The other thing is that I think there's going to be much bigger push towards automation and streamlining processes, most likely through some sort of technology, especially where you've got a SMB market. It is absolutely impossible to be able to find out what's going on with 1,000 customers, and be able to address that. And the only way to do that really is to have some software, some automation that allows you to flag or automatically flags when something's going on with a customer, or allows you to communicate with the customer, or allows you to present data that the customer can use for their decision makers.
Yeah,
So I think
agree.
those are the big things those are gonna happen.
That makes total sense. What else should we know about you?
I mean, from what I'm saying, I think it's clear that I'm very excited and a big believer of customer success, and am trying to do what I can to continue making its case, making adjustments where necessary, but making its case and giving customer success the opportunity to shine and be a critical part of a company. The other piece that's related to this is I'm also a big fan of being customer centric. With my early customers, my early clients, I'm trying to get them to understand that customer success is a responsibility of the whole company, and you don't need necessarily a function to get it working. What you need is to understand what it means to be customer centric, and how do you set up the way you communicate, the way you work with clients to do that across the board.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. How can we learn more about you, follow your career, and get into contact with you?
So I have a website, www.barlevsuccess.com. It's relatively new, and I'm very excited about it. You'll find out what I really like in life outside of work. LinkedIn, but I really enjoy talking to people. I love if they have a question or a problem, or they want to know something and I'm able to help them. So I have a link on my LinkedIn and on my website to set up time to speak with me.
Well, that's awesome. I know I use that link to set this up, and it works quite well. So definitely go that route. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Until we talk again.
Thank you. Bye.